Hi everyone, it's the beginning of June. It's June 4th actually. Lady, what are you doing? I don't know what she wants. Yes, I just have a few more things to tell you about May. Before I go into choosing my books for June. I finished reading The Fisherman and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good. I picked this up, like I said, because it was like touted online all over the internet as like one of the greatest horror novels ever written, you know, beautiful writing. And I did think the writing was very it was nice. It was lyrical, you know. Overall, like, I thought it was good, but like it wasn't quite like that much for me, which is why obviously it's not 5 stars, it's only 4 stars. The things I loved about it, the one thing I loved about it was all the descriptions of like this enormous like black sea, and yeah, there was a lot of like the description of like all this really dark, creepy imagery was very cool. This also had a story within the story, which was like over 100 pages long. So it took up quite a bit of the book, which I kind of wasn't a fan of. I liked the story. Within the story, it was creepy and weird. It kind of gave me like Pet Sematary vibes. But it was just so long, and I just like, every time I turned the chapter, I'm just like, oh my god, we're still here. And I wanted to go back to Abe, our main character, because he was so interesting, and I liked reading from his point of view. And he speaks with in this like interesting, like, I think it's like Appalachian accent with like this interesting sentence structure that I found very enjoyable to read. Okay, then the other thing I finished since I spoke to you last was The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. And this is a gothic story following like multiple different timelines. It's like different women in this family point of view. They all go through like these creepy, horrifying things in their house. It's like kind of paranormal, and it has like these big life-size wooden figures of like all the family members that are called the Silent Companions. And like, I guess the family had these made, and now like they're in the house, and they like seem to be moving around on their own, and you know, hurting people and killing people maybe. And it was really creepy, and I really liked it up until like the end. And the end really, really annoyed me and irritated me, and it like made me knock off like of my rating. Like, so I'll go ahead and spoil it and tell you what happens, because this, if I had known that this was the case, I wouldn't have read this, because it's really one of my biggest like pet peeves in media and in storytelling is yeah, they revealed the like evil character the whole time that was like hurting everybody and like tormenting everyone was this like disabled, disfigured girl from one of the timelines who like, she like was born without a tongue, okay? So she's disfigured, she can't speak, like her family also, like, she gets left out of things, like her father mistreats her because of this, like she's mistreated by the family, and like this causes her to like become filled with like just spite and malice for her family, and working dark magic, curse them and torture them for generations to come. That really irritated me. That's like a really harmful, annoying stereotype of like anyone with like a facial difference or a disfigurement or like something like that is the villain. It like, and especially adding it because it's like she becomes the villain because of how she's treated. It's like, oh my god, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And also her being a kid as well. It's just like, you're pissing me off. And this is so common, like, in horror, unfortunately. It's like, so I see this like quite often because I am a huge horror fan. So yeah, I gave this a 2.5 because of that reason, or else I would have given it like a high 4 because of like the environment and the story was cool. Other than that, oh my god. Okay, and then the other thing is I read another book and totally forgot to mention it last time, and that is All Fours by Miranda July. Okay, this was one of the weirdest books I've ever read. Yeah, this was about a woman in her 40s who is a wife and a mother to like a adolescent, like teen, and she's going on this like trip to New York City allegedly and driving herself there for like 24, like a day-long drive. But then she actually just drives like 30 minutes away and checks into a motel and like lies to her family about it, and then she just starts like redoing the motel. Like she hires a personal decorator like for a lot of money to come remodel the motel room that she's staying in, replace all the furniture. Like, it is so bizarre, it is so interesting. The whole time I was just like, what are you doing? But yeah, basically she's like having like a midlife crisis type of thing that has to do with like her sexuality and how she feels about her body and like how people view her, and because she's in her mid-40s and she's starting to feel symptoms of perimenopause, so it's kind of like about that, and it's about like queerness and exploring that like later in life. Yeah, overall I thought it was like interesting, and like I was like really gripped and fascinated the whole time because this woman was just like, I don't know, like very eccentric and very, yeah, the decisions that she kept making were just like so baffling. She was doing very odd things, but I think she was feeling like very relatable, like somewhat relatable like feelings. I don't know. It was bizarre. It was interesting. I gave it 4 stars overall. Yeah, that's one I just randomly picked up. But okay, now the most exciting part and my reward for doing this is that I get to finally choose my books for June, because it's June 4th and I haven't started like this project yet. Okay, so I have the mugs. I'm only gonna choose from these 2 this time because I really like wanting to get some books off my shelves and like unhaul them if possible. So, and my goal this month, like since I read 3 physical books last month, I feel like I can definitely do that again, and maybe even 4 if they're short enough. So we're gonna have to see what I choose. But anyway, I'm going to choose out of this one first. Hi, lady. This isn't about you. Okay, and this is great because I got Killers of the Flower Moon. And this is great because, as you'll see, in one of my previous drawings, I drew this and I like put it back and redrew because I was already, this is a like quite a big nonfiction, and I was already reading quite a big nonfiction for that month, but this is great because now this one will get its turn, which it should have already had. Okay. I guess I'll choose one out of here next to mix it up a little bit. She's back. Okay. Black House. Wait. That is a sequel, actually. So I think I'll have to read the first book, I got Black House by Stephen King and Peter Straub, but that's the sequel to Talisman, so okay, so I grabbed the Talisman. Yeah, I think it might be only 3 books this month. Okay, so I'm gonna choose another out of here. Okay. This is not possible. I picked Sleeping Beauties by Stephen King and Owen King. This is not possible. Maybe I should just read it. Maybe I just really should read it. I am screwed this month, you guys. I'm forced to just read Stephen King. So this book, I think, is about like a town where like maybe all the women just fall asleep or something like that. I have no idea, something like that. And the Talisman, honestly, I do not know what it's about. I'm assuming it's about a talisman, but yeah, that's one of his older ones. I'm always honestly more excited to read his older work than his newer work, so let's see. I also grabbed Killers of the Flower Moon. It's almost the end of June. There's one more week left of the month, and I wanted to update you on what I've been reading this month. So first of all, I finished a book that I just randomly decided to read because the library had the audiobook available. This is Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy, and I would say this is a YA like fantasy mystery adventure. And the thing I like the most about this is the main detective like character, Skullduggery Pleasant, that's his name, and he is a skeleton. He's the reanimated skeleton of a dead sorcerer, and he's like really sassy and has like dry, but he takes everything like really literally. And anyway, and then the protagonist that you're following is this girl called Stephanie, and she's a high schooler. Her uncle, I think, yeah, her uncle is an author, and he has like this big manor and like all these like assets and things that he leaves to her and he's murdered, and it's like a whole mystery. And yeah, there's like a bunch of books in the series, like 10 maybe. I only have the first one. I think I'll continue listening to them just on audio. But yeah, I really like this. I thought it was fun, and it was something a little different than like the usual like mainstream super hyped like YA series that get a lot of attention. Like this is a little bit different. Plus I also really love whenever like a skull or a skeleton is a character. I love that in books, so yeah. The next thing I've been reading is The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. I'm about halfway through it, and loving it. I'm enjoying it more now, I have to say, than I was like the first 200 pages. I didn't really like, I wasn't fully like locked in to continue reading, and then all of a sudden like I just became invested in the story enough that I want to know what happens. But there's okay, let me just say, like, as soon as I read the synopsis of this book, I immediately was like, oh, I'm not interested in that. So yeah, the book's kind of starting off on the wrong foot with me a little bit, but it's this fantasy adventure story about a 12-year-old boy called Jack Sawyer, and I believe this is the case, that this is like kind of like an homage, or it has a little something to do with Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn because of that. And then there was also like a quote at the beginning from, I think, Huckleberry Finn. And then I found out, actually from this other book I'm reading that I'll show you later, that like going to the territories, which is a thing in this book, is like a thing in Huckleberry Finn, which I didn't know because I've never read that. But anyway, this book is about she keeps showing you the back. This book is about this boy. His dad died, his mom is sick, and they just like moved into a hotel by the beach in New Hampshire. And she's sick, but like he can tell she's sick, but she like won't admit it, and they're not talking about it. So I find that to be an interesting part. It's not like really like a main part, like, well, it kind of is, because he ends up going on this whole journey where he has to go, like, basically he has to travel like on his own all the way from New Hampshire to California and the coast, and then all the way back, and retrieve a talisman there and come all the way back. And there's like evil guys chasing him, and he also is like flipping back and forth between our reality and this different reality that is like on the same land, but it's smaller. So like when he travels over there, he travels way farther over here. And over there in the territories, it's called, it's like really all natural, like it's like old-timey peasants and kings and stuff like that. As far as technology goes, like there's no, they're unindustrialized, there's no like pollution, and it's really emphasized how like fresh and clear the air is, and how you can smell like your neighbor 10 miles away picking a radish, you can smell it. And yeah, he flips back and forth between these worlds by drinking this like juice that this guy gives him. And then this part is going to get into my biggest critique and problem with this book, which is I didn't realize this before reading this. As soon as I ran into it, which is right at the beginning, he meets this character pretty much right away, Speedy Parker. So that is a trope that Stephen King loves to put in his books, and I've already read quite a few of them, and it's painful to read. We're starting off with that right away, and like this guy, and he's an older black man. He's a custodian, like at the boardwalk, down at the boardwalk. He tells him about the territories, he gives him this beverage that he has to drink to flip back and forth, and he like gives him advice, and he also like has these like psychic magical powers where like he can like project an emotion on you somehow. Yeah. It really almost made me stop reading the book. I pushed through for some reason because I was just like slightly intrigued by this story. And I actually do like the protagonist, Jack. Like, he is a kid who has had to deal with a lot for his age, and I think it's interesting reading from his perspective, but, and like all the stuff he's going through now in the middle, like he's met up with like all these different characters. Also, this reminds me a lot of, well, he met this like wolf-like character, and it reminded me of like Wolves of the Calla from The Dark Tower by Stephen King. And The Dark Tower is like, it's always been like one of my favorite book series of all time, like since I read it like 10 years ago. But now that I'm like, my reading taste has changed so much and I've become so much more critical, yeah, it makes me really nervous to reread it. I'm really scared that it's gonna be shit. I'm scared that it's going to be just trash, and it probably is, but oh well. Yes, I'm enjoying this actually now. Speedy's not in it. He's not like constantly in it. He was in it at the beginning, and then like he showed up later. Okay, it doesn't matter, but anyway. Oh yeah, and apparently like now Stephen King's coming out with the final book in this trilogy, which I didn't know was happening. So I guess I'll end up reading that eventually, just to finish it up. But yeah, I'm pretty much just reading it just to read it at this point. I'll probably end up unhauling this copy because I have a hardback, like, vintage copy. So I'm definitely not going to need 2 copies of a book that I'm not that thrilled over. Another book I have been reading and loving and savoring and enjoying so much on audio is The Phantom of the Opera by, hold on, let me see the author, Gaston Leroux. And if you don't know what The Phantom of the Opera is about, it is about this opera house in France, I believe, because everything's in French, and it's haunted by a ghost. He signs his notes OG Opera Ghost. But he's also like a creep and a freak. Like, because he's like obsessed with this singer who's like very young. I think she's like 16 or something. Maybe she's 17. Christine Daae, and he's been coaching her, and he's the angel of music and all that. If you haven't seen the movie, it's so good. And yes, the book is really, really good. I think I'll probably be finishing that in the next couple of days. And then, oh yes, and I've been listening to Sleeping Beauties on audio because, number one, because I'm already reading a big fat physical book, but number two, because my copy is like, the binding glue leaked out like on the pages, and it's like kind of glued shut half of the book, so I'm gonna be unhauling that copy. And yeah, I'm like a quarter of the way through the audiobook, and yeah, I can already tell it's like probably a good idea to unhaul that. I'm probably not gonna be needing to read this ever again, but it's holding my attention enough to continue with it, which I didn't think it was going to at the very beginning, but it actually is. It's written by Stephen King and his son Owen, and it's about like all of a sudden there's this like pandemic of it only affects women, and they like fall asleep and they get this like webby like moth covering over their face, and if you disturb the moth covering and try to take it off, they like will become like in a murderous rage and they'll like kill you. So yeah, it's going okay. It's fine. I can tell like they're trying to like do like some type of feminist twist. I appreciate what they're trying to do, like yeah. Okay, and the other main book I've been reading is Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI by David Grann. Oh yeah, I got my last book got interrupted, I believe, but I was saying that I got this book from a garage sale in like an old people's retirement village, and this old guy was selling a bunch of books, and I asked him which one he thought I should get, and he gave me this one to get, and I'm really glad that I got it, and it's really interesting, and also I can see he read some of it and like penciled some things, so it's really nice to have. But this is a nonfiction book about this like string of murders that happened in Osage territory. In what's the year? Okay, like in the 1920s. It follows this family. Let me see. I think I didn't write it down. The Burkhart family. A woman, Molly, and her sisters. One of her sisters is murdered, and Molly is like a main part of this, like this beginning part with because this is going to be all about the murders and the investigation, and it's also been about colonization of native land and stealing land by force, because it goes into the history of like how did these people end up in this area, like what have they gone through, like what have they had to go through. And like Molly's family, like her ancestors, just like her parents had to, you know, move. Molly herself had to travel. She was taken by force by the United States government, by force, with other girls her age, and taken hours and hours away by a horse and buggy and carriage or whatever the heck it is, and forced into these residential schools where they took their clothes away from them. They handed them a Bible and they gave them, you know, proper American clothes. They forbid them from speaking their native language. They said they can only speak English. They forbid them from wearing their hair in their traditional braids. So yeah, I'm going to flip through this a little bit and show you like the pictures. There's a lot of pictures in this, and I find them very interesting. I love getting a glimpse of the past, and I love getting like a little picture of what we're talking about in here. Okay, and then it's like all about how like their land got like parceled up into these allotments and sold off to wealthy people, wealthy men, or like whoever could make the money, and then they could become wealthy because there was oil on this land. They were drilling oil. And then it's just like all about like, also it's also like it's like the cowboy era and like bandits and like prohibition and stuff like that. So yeah, it's interesting. I know there's a movie of this now, so I will be interested to watch that after I finish this. But yeah, I will show you that now, and then that's that. I'd be interested to read some other work by this guy because I really like how he's put this together. It's very, very readable, but it's like packed full of information. Okay, there's the map. Here we are. Okay, here's Molly. And here's Ernest, her husband. Oh, and here's Molly and her sisters. Oh, and there's two of the girls, and then their mother, Lizzie, in the middle there. Oh, yeah, this is a guy who owns a bunch of land there, and he's Molly's uncle. There's all the sisters together. Okay, and this is where I just got to today, part 2. So I'm going to continue on with this. I'm hoping to finish this by the end of the week, but I'm only like a third of the way through it, so I really don't know if that's going to be realistic. But I'm going to try my best. I'm just in the middle of doing my nails, and I wanted to update you on what I've been reading. There's one day left of the month. It's the 29th, and yes, I'm going to be trying to finish all of these by tomorrow, which is going to be kind of hard, but yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling stubborn about it, so I'm just going to do it. But I only have 50 pages left of this, and there was a ton more murders. There was like a total of like 24 members of the Osage tribe murdered, and yeah, it was. And then there was a long section about like J. Edgar Hoover and the start of the FBI and him choosing investigators and how the investigation went and all these different like trails they went on. And then I do know who the killer is. I do know who the mastermind is. Yeah. I'm really glad that I chose this book from my mug, because I don't know when I would have read it otherwise, and I'm enjoying like the reading experience, and I feel like I'm learning a lot about like the time period and the area that I otherwise wouldn't have learned. So yeah, I only have 50 pages left. I'm gonna read that tomorrow. I read 50 pages this morning, so I know I can do it. Yes, on to my audiobook that I'm listening to, which is this that I chose from the mug as well. This is something interesting. Let me put this down. It's really heavy. And just to let you know, yeah. Oh, I think I said about, I don't know if I said about the glue, but the binding like did this, and it's like glued kind of shut in a way. Like, I think I could rip it open, but I'm just going to be unhauling it because I don't really care about, like, honestly, the story. It's not that good. It's not that interesting. It kind of feels like just junk to eat. Like, if you're just like consuming junk. Like, it's kind of like, it's a little bit entertaining. I think it's like 30% entertaining. So yes. I don't know if I said what it's about before. I think I did. But the interesting part of this book is we do get the perspective of like from a female prison, and like prisoners and the guards and the warden and like all these different people in connection with this prison. And I find that perspective interesting. It reminds me of Orange is the New Black, which I love that show. Most of it. Oh, there is a lot of really disgusting sexism. The whole point of this book is like, this is like a feminist tale. This is like a feminist thing that they did. You know, that was like the goal with this story, I believe. And it shows like a lot of the gross, disgusting characters, like they're really sexist. They say these really disgusting, like dehumanizing things about women. It's like really shocking. This whole Aurora sickness is called Aurora sickness because it's like they're going to sleep like Sleeping Beauty. I'm just like, ugh. I'm just kind of like, okay. This is what my thing with Stephen King is like, I've always like been so intrigued by his work ever since I was a child. I would see his books and just want to read them, and I started reading them when I was like 13 years old, and I read a ton of them. but I still have a ton of them left to read. And my goal was always to read all of them because I was like, oh, he's one of my favorite authors, like I love all his books, blah blah blah. But now that I'm like much more critical in what I'm reading, and I've read a lot more like a lot more like way better authors, no offense, like Stephen King's awesome, but yeah, my taste has just changed so much, and like they're really hit or miss for me, his books, and this is just like okay, like this, like I was saying, like the sickness I don't really care about, like I don't think it's that. I'm like, okay, this whole thing feels like very cliche and very like just like generic, I don't know, like nothing surprising. Like there's this whole thing with this like woman named Evie, and she's supposed to be like Eve, like the first woman, and she's the one who caused this, and it's like I'm like, okay, I don't care. Like, okay. Yes, but I'm going to finish it because I just want to like have read it, because it is technically on my TBR, and I am going to be unhauling this. I'm going to be getting rid of this because I never want to read this again because of all the reasons I said. Oh, but I did want to say a couple interesting things about it. I don't think it's totally worthless. Like, I do think I don't want it to come across that I think it's totally like worthless and trash, but it's just for me in this moment of my reading journey. It's, yeah, I don't quite know how to describe it, but I do want to say one of the interesting things is how society responds to the loss of all women, and all women, not all, like not literally all, but most of the women like falling asleep and losing their labor, I guess. Also, I want to say that Stephen King has always been very good at writing white trash characters. Impoverished white trash characters, and that is one of his strong suits in this book as well. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say so far. I still have like 7 hours of this left on the audiobook. I'm gonna push it to like 2 times speed and just like try to bust through the end of it because I don't care. I have like 25% of it left, I think. Okay, and then I have to complain again because I have been reading The Talisman the entire month. I started this the day I drew it from the mug, and I still have like 150 pages left. Let me just say, it's way too long. It's way too long. Yeah, I already said that, like, I wasn't interested in the premise to begin with, so, like, yeah, maybe I'm already not giving it a fair shake, but I tried to give it, like, my all. Like, I really tried. And I even got invested, like, in one of the characters that now is, like, no longer in the story. And as soon as he left the story, I was just, like, it just started, like, dropping off in my interest. And he was only there for, like, maybe 200 pages. Let me see. Oh, yeah, and, like earlier, before how I said how this was giving me Dark Tower vibes, and like it was just reminding me of the Dark Tower. And then like a huge main plot line of this is that Jack has to go on this like long train journey across like a barren, they're called the Blasted Lands, and it sounds a lot like the Wastelands if you ask me. Which is, yeah, that's a huge part of the Dark Tower series as well, like this, and it was just like reminding me of that, like so much, like the descriptions of it as well. I did like the descriptions of it, like, kind of, only I was just annoyed that like, I already like I was like, okay, I feel like I've already read this in another book. I wrote down, I can't wait for it to be over. That's how I feel. I can't wait for it to be over. I'm not enjoying it anymore. I don't care. I literally just feel like I don't care. It's way too long. I can't believe I have another book in this series on my shelf that looks like huge as well. I'm going to be unhauling this copy because I have 2 copies of this. I have like a hardback, like older copy that I'm going to be holding on. I'm going to be holding on to them for now, just like, I don't know. I don't know why. But I'm going to get rid of this one, obviously. I do not need to have this one. Oh, the other thing I want to say is, like, I do not mix with Peter Straub. Like, I read one of his books. I read Ghost Story by him, and my critique of that book, I read it years ago, like probably like 6 or 7 years ago, and it was way too long and it was boring. So like that's kind of how I feel about this, and I'm like, I know that I'm like, is that Peter Straub? No offense, like, no offense. And it's like, obviously a lot of people love him, and he just doesn't mesh with me. He's just not my thing, but I am going to finish that as well. I'm going to push through it. I'm going to power through it. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was I watched the movie Nosferatu finally, like, after wanting to watch it ever since it came out. Like, it's looked so cool. Like, it was so hyped everywhere. And I hated it. The ending of this movie was extremely, extremely disgusting and disturbing, and like not in the way that like not in a good way. Like, God. Yeah, I really want to know if anybody else feels like this, because I feel like all I've ever heard about this movie is like praise. So the ending of this movie just filled me with like disgust and like just totally put me completely. Like, yeah, I don't know if anybody else felt like that, but anyway, I'm going to go on to reading and I will let you know how it goes. I know this video is already way too long, so I just want to try to wrap it up as quickly as possible. I don't have that much to say. Okay, so I finished The Talisman. I finished all 3 of these physical books I'm going to list on July 1st, which is kind of annoying, but yeah, this book I really didn't like. I genuinely just feel like it's bad. Like, there were a few scenes I enjoyed, so like in a few like settings I enjoyed, so I am gonna give it like 2 stars and like a character or 2 here and there. But yeah, I just thought it was way too long and dragged out. If it was like 300 pages shorter, maybe, you know, I would be less annoyed because I would have spent less time. And the whole entire ending sequence as well was like it was as long as possible. It was so dragged out. It was unbelievably like redundant, and yeah. So yeah, so excited to read the sequel. Can't wait to read it. Yeah, I'm gonna be unhauling this, which is good because this is what I wanted to happen. And then I also finished Sleeping Beauties. This book I also really did not like. Oh yeah, I also thought that this just suffered from being like far too long and everything drug out. Like, I just feel like both of these books needed to be edited so much. And yeah, and at the end, the author's note said that this book used to be much longer. I could not believe that. Okay, the one thing that was interesting was the author's note at the end. They said that they went to tour a women's prison, and they like talked to like the warden and like guards there, and like went and I think visited some inmates or like heard about them and like learned about how the prison works and everything. And like that was the one thing about the book that I did feel like, okay, like the prison thing is interesting. Like you're really getting to meet like these very interesting different characters who are all connected to the prison. So yeah. Otherwise, I just felt like this was just way too long. Maybe if it was shorter, I would have liked it a lot more. I'm not sure. But anyway, I will be getting rid of this. Okay, and then the last thing I finished was Killers of the Flower Moon. This was so heartbreaking. But it was so well done. Like, it was so well researched, I feel. And you could tell that the author, David Gran, he really cared about this. Like, he went to Oklahoma and, like, he was digging deep into getting this information. Oh yeah, I just kept thinking, like, we found out, like, who, like, one main mastermind was of, like, a bunch of different murders. And then I thought, like, that was kind of going to be it, but then we kept uncovering more and more and more crimes and more things, and yeah, it was very twisted and complex and corrupt, and it was devastating, and it touched into colonization and the forced erasure of a culture, of someone's culture. It just really, like, it just, like, hurts the heart, too. Oh my god, my fucking pen. Okay, what else do I have to say? Oh yeah, it mainly was about, like, greed. It was about racism also, and greed. And just, like, these horrible people who, like, once the Osage Nation, like, they owned some parcel of land that had, like, oil and was worth a lot of money, like, all these people just flocked there to, like, take advantage and, like, basically just, like, kill them off. Also, any full-blooded Osage, they could not have control over their own finances. They couldn't buy anything or take any money out at all from their bank without getting permission from their, like, white, like, financial handler that they were forced to have. Like, it is absolutely crazy. And in addition to this, I wanted to learn more about the Osage because I honestly never heard of them before this book. So, and my knowledge of indigenous culture and history in the land that I live in is so lacking. Like, it's something I'm definitely going to be diving into. Like, it just, I don't know. It's like you don't know how much you don't know until you learn, like, a little something, and then you're like, oh, I don't know anything about this. So yeah, I'm putting some links down below. Oh yeah, okay. And okay, YouTube's doing this thing where, like, they need to verify my account for them to let me put links in the description. But I tried to do that and they're like, we can't verify it. So I'm like, okay. So if I can't put the links in the description, I'm going to put them in the comments. And one of them is Conversations with Osage Tribal Elders from YouTube. I found that very interesting. It was like two ladies. And another interview with the same lady from the first interview, Catherine Redcorn. Her longer interview was actually really interesting, and she talked about some other books about Osage culture, and also about, like, this killing time and all that, written by I think one of her relatives. So I put that on my TBR. I found that really interesting. And then I found this excellent resource of, like, this huge film database of Indigenous peoples in Canada. That's what it's called. First Nations. And yeah, and then that's that on that. Okay, and the other thing I really want to talk about before I end this video is I'm going to be putting some links if you want to directly help people who are being held in ICE custody and ICE detention. So these people are being held in horrific, inhumane, unsanitary, like unhealthy conditions. It's the same facility, Delaney Hall in New Jersey. I'm posting a link so you can give money directly to the commissary funds there so that people can contact their families and also buy like drinkable water like that won't make them sick, and like commissary food that also will not be like rotten and have bugs in it and stuff like that. Oh yeah, and then I'm posting a link tree with all these different groups, these community-based groups that are directly on the ground helping people. If you want to help the helpers or become a helper yourself, I particularly feel so passionate about the group Haven Watch. I've seen so many videos of them helping people who have just been released from ICE detention, like into like the cold with like nothing on, just a t-shirt, like they can't contact anybody, like they just release them out into the middle of nowhere. Several people have actually died from this, from freezing to death. So anyway, yes, I'll put those links down below. Oh yes, one more thing. I did say I was gonna put some articles, but I actually chose a video essay which was so well done by Princess Weeks, called The Magical Negroes of Stephen King, and she brought to attention even more characters that I wasn't aware of. But yes, it was very informative, and also she also touched on his use of the Indian burial ground as like a mystical, evil place. Yeah, it's like a tokenization of, yeah. Anyway, well, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that the next video will be a lot shorter than this one. I'm going to figure out what the hell I am doing video-wise, but I'm still just like figuring it out and starting out, so I don't know. But anyways, yes, thank you, and I will see you for my July wrap-up coming up. Bye!